Hello, everyone, to our classmates and to our mentor, Miss Doom. Have a great one to all of you. So, I and my group mates, Miss Alma Rose Dayaday and Miss Leah Avila, we are going to discuss the lesson 2, which is about the technology as a way of revealing. But before we will proceed, let me read to you first the objectives and the introduction about this topic.
At the end of this lesson, the students should be able to explain the concept of human condition before science technology, identify the change that happened in human condition after science and technology, and name ways on how technology aided in revealing the truth about the human being. Comparing the lives of the people before and now will make anyone realize the changes that happened in society, not just in terms of culture, language, or rights, but some importantly, changes in people's way of life due to the existence of science and technology. The term generation gap is attributed mainly to the changes brought about by technology. Although the original idea is for technology to help everyone, it cannot be denied that until today, not everyone is comfortable in using the different kinds of technologies. Mostly those who belong to the older generation think that these technologies are too complicated to operate. They have been used to the simple living in the past, and these available technological devices, though very appealing, are a difficult puzzle to them. However, this gap is not something to be worried about. This does not in any way make technology as a villain. Instead, it is a challenge for people in the field of science and technology to make these technological advancements more accessible and less confusing for people who are not as young anymore. This is also a challenge for the younger generation to take the older generation to an exciting journey in the science and technology. In this way, everyone can experience what it is like to live with ease and comfort because of the availability of modern technology. Even before, people are already fascinated with science and technology. This fascination led to numerous magnificent inventions that people in the present are able to enjoy and benefit from. Through science and technology, people get to experience what it really means to live because it helps people in more ways than one. People who lived in the past and people who are living in the present all have different views of what it means to flourish, primarily due to the kind of environment and the period one is in. People's ways of life and how the society works also affect how one construes the concept of human flourishing. The environment needs to be assessed in order to know the possibility of human flourishing and to what extent it is possible. Since there have been drastic changes in people's way of life, it can be inferred that there have been drastic changes not only in the conception of human flourishing but to the people's actual human condition. These changes were brought about by the interplay of different factors, but essentially it was brought about by science and technology. So people before tech use more paper, reading newspapers, doing crosswords, puzzles in books, playing solitary with cards. The students most of the time doing their assignments in the library. Crafts and building things was much more common, and talking to neighbors instead of Facebook friends. So, I just realized na yung mga marites noon, pumupunta pa sa kapitbahay to talk when they get bored. But nowadays, using any platforms like Skype, Viber, but the famous one is Facebook, using these platforms, makamarites ka na, no need to go to your neighbor's house. But kidding aside. Indeed, before technology, communication was snail mail since long distance was expensive and everything was long distance. So Annual Christmas cards was the only way we connected to cousins. Now, cousins and nieces and nephews and their kids are Facebook friends. So, in general, science and technology makes life more comfortable and less dangerous. And also, with technology, it helps us to do the complicated and difficult things quickly and efficiently, especially to the students like us. It helps us to do our research papers and our assignments. And not only that, it makes our chores at home pretty easily. Like, we don't need to use our hands when we wash our dirty clothes because of technology. Washing machine was invented, and not only that, even our transportation was already upgraded and many more. What about to those old ones or old generation? Yeah, we can't deny the fact that there are still who are not comfortable using the technology. And this is a great challenge to those people who are in the field of science and technology and how they're going to make it accessible, especially to the old ones, as well as to the young generation. This must be also a challenge to them. Like they're going to teach their parents or grandmas and grandpas who are not savvy like them. Like on my own experience, um, sa office, they're they're old ones na nag-office pa. So medyo hirap sila using the computer. They are not that techy, so I need to teach them pa. So for me it was a challenge kasi hindi nila agad na nakukuha yung tinuturo ko. The human condition before common era. Our early ancestors' primal need to survive paved way for the invention of several developments. Gifted with brains more advanced than other creatures, humans are able to utilize abundant materials for their own ease and comfort. As it is difficult to pinpoint the particular period where technology is said to have started, one can say that at the very least, the motivation to make things easier has been around since human or Homo erectus have been using fire to cook through chipping one flint over the other to produce a spark, all the while without realizing the laws of friction and heat. Tools from stone and flints mark the era of the Stone Age. During the advent of our very own Homo sapiens, and humans began to sharpen stones as one would a knife. An example of this is the simple machine called wedge. So there's no particular period when was the technology started, but one can say that the motivation started to make things easier was during the humans or Homo erectus by chipping one flint to another to produce a spark. Can you imagine that? Ang hirap ng buhay noon, but back in the day, the people were able to survive the life without technology we use today. Also, the technology that was used back then do not use electricity until it was used for modern day technology, and still they survive and they made their own technology as needed. So basically, the technology they primarily used was their brains. They figured how to make tools from wood, they sharpened stones to make a knife and metal. This allowed them to make weapons to hunt better and how start fires or make a fire. You see how smart they are? This particular period proved to be difficult for our ancestors, but in a remarkably distinct way. There is little to no written accounts except for several cave drawings and unearthed artifacts from various parts of the world that narrate how their culture came to be. It then proves that there is little capacity for our ancestors to contemplate and perceive things outside themselves in a more reflective manner. For instance, there are several excavations in different parts of Europe of miniature statues prevalent during the Paleolithic period, the so-called Venus figure. It depicts a rudimentary carving of a voluptuous woman out of ivory or stone. The reason behind this is still unknown to archaeologists and anthropologists alike. They can only infer that the humans of yesterday have a certain fixation on the female anatomy. What did this fascination translate to? Lack of conclusive evidence hinders us from proceeding any further. This so called Venus figure, very little is known about its origin, method of creation, or cultural significance. However, it is one of numerous Venus figurines or representations of female figures surviving from the Paleolithic period. The purpose of the carving is the subject of such speculation. It never had feet and does not stand on its own. Parts of the body associated with fertility and childbearing have been emphasized, leading researchers to believe that Venus may have been used as a fertility goddess. Soon enough, people discovered minerals and began forging metalwork. They realized that these substances are more durable, malleable, and have more luster than the previous material. On the other hand, there are some indicators that humans in the past shared the same concerns and interests, suggesting that these inclinations persist through multitudes of generations over several millennia. Fur, clothing, and animal skin are primarily used to comfort against harsh winds. Our ancestors are able to draw the connection between their being naked and vulnerable due to some lack of fur or protective covering, which would otherwise allow them to withstand extreme weather conditions. They begin to cover themselves up out of necessity and gradually added several more to their garments. Some of those found at excavation sites are reminiscent of early accessories, suggesting that our ancestors have been deeply engaged in the concept of beauty. Perhaps they had taken a liking to a certain shiny stone or a perfectly shaped bone and wanted to wear it as trophy. What does this tell of them and their philosophies? Were they perhaps proud to show off their hunt and how good of a hunter they were? Were they concerned with social standing and stratification? How about the meaning of life? Were they also curious on finding explanations to certain phenomena? Those are the questions. Well, at least for the last question, it seems that they have found their answer in the person of religion. Excavations on the latter half of the Stone Age include several figures thought to be ceremonial, meaning that perhaps people of the time had also painstakingly wrought and hewed said figures in honor of some deity. This notion, as it was then and as it is now, is often people's resort to make sense of events happening outside their control. The initial roster of primitive gods includes objects they encounter through their day to day lives. So it is not surprising that different tribes may have different gods. Those who might have lived alongside majestic creatures such as elephants and mammoths might have been awed by their size and worshipped them as the owner of the land, asking for blessings in their hunting ground. On the contrary, they might have hunted the mammoths for their woolly coat and meat, taking down the animal for the entire community to eat. In windy places near mountains, they might have a mountain god to explain wind currents and ask for provisions. On the other hand, those who were near coastal areas or bodies of water might have had water gods they referred to when asking for a good catch. However, it might be also the case that people of prior civilizations shared several genetic gods such as the sun. So basically, early men or our ancestors worshiped nature. Nature that helped them live, air, river, fire, sea, mountains, sun, trees, and animals. A sense of gratitude for everything that makes their life on this earth. Well, the nature has leave us with every single thing from the molecule to the oceans. So maybe that's why they worship the nature or the animal or the sun, whatever it is, to show their gratitude. But even up to now, there are some religion or tribe still do these things. Nevertheless, it can be positively inferred that, like the people of today, Our ancestors also found the need to explain things in a way that makes sense to them. They quickly realized that there are events outside of their control and attempted to justify things as being a work of a supernatural being. Throughout the course of history, religion remains to be the strongest contender to science, arguably due to its being the most easily grasped. Admittedly, once people stop connecting the dots between cause and effect, they turn to something that could possibly explain their inadequacies in making sense of the world. The people of yesterday appeared to have acknowledged early on that they could only do and understand as much, that perhaps other powers at play also existed alongside them. This notion effectively humbled and perhaps grounded them, with their constant befuddlement serving as an early reminder that they were way behind several larger, more powerful forces in nature in terms of order of things. So basically, our ancestors eventually realized that there are things that outside of their control and attempted to justify it as being a work of supernatural being, something and any event or phenomena which can't be explained using natural or scientific laws. Just like the people today, we have so many whys. There are things that even science cannot explain. And even I myself believe that there is God who created nature with its laws and limitations, operates outside of these parameters, and when He does, we see it as being supernatural. Kung ikukumpara natin ang buhay natin ngayon from our ancestors, it was really tough. But there was a great deal of manual work. There was no pollution back then. People live a simple life. Nowadays, life is hectic outside homes. All cities are polluted. However, many people have all facilities to lead a comfortable life. People live a relaxed life without much work at home, as they have washing machines, grinders, etc. But this has a telling on their health. And mind you, nowadays, quite ordinary people can travel around the world with an ease that not even the ultra wealthy could manage just a century ago. And it's all because of technology.